Mander is the director of the Center for Equity Studies and Special Commissioner to the Supreme Court in the Right to Food case and campaign. He has been a force to reckon with, especially since the right-wing forces have taken to power in the center. He has led Karwan-e-Mohabbat ever since 2017 to engage in very difficult and delicate dialogue in neighborhoods and families that have been affected by the lynchings. He, in June 2018, resigned from the Office of Special Monitor for Minorities and Communal Violence at the National Human Rights Commission due to the Commission's refusal to act on a report that he submitted against the state of the detention centers in Assam.
Friends, we stand today at an extraordinary moment in the journey of our republic. My own politics has always been based on almost a naive optimism in the hope of the power of human goodness. But even I was beginning to lose hope over the last years. In the journeys of the Karwan-e-Mohabbat, where we reached out to every family who had been hit by lynching, simply to go to their homes and say, "You're not alone, there are people who care, and we are ashamed of what you have suffered, and we'll stand with you as you rebuild your life and fight for justice." The kind of hatred that I saw, we'd reached a point where families would say, "I wish they just shot him. I wish they just stabbed him. Why did they torture him so much? Why did they gouge out his eyes? Why did they smash his genitals?" And in every place I would ask, at least someone came and helped you at that time? Somebody from the Hindu community. And the answer was always no. And that is why I was beginning to lose hope. And then something suddenly has exploded across our country. The RSS and the BJP, I think, see this moment very clearly as completing what they see as the unfinished business of partition. They want the remaining Muslims in India to go to Pakistan. They want the remaining Hindus from Pakistan and Bangladesh to come to India. I think what we are seeing today is completing the unfinished business of the freedom struggle. And what is that? I don't recall a time since, and I was thinking hard, when have people come out onto the streets for Hindu-Muslim unity? The last time it happened was in Mahatma Gandhi's last fast, 73 years ago, his last fast was when he was completely heartbroken, and the mosques and the dargahs in Delhi had been taken over and converted into temples by putting idols. Muslims were being driven out of their homes, and his last fast was for the restoration with respect of those mosques and dargahs, and asking the Muslims to come back to their homes and not to go to Pakistan. They say the first day, 10,000 people were on the streets in his support. By the fifth day, there were 1 lakh people. And I think at that moment, we resolved together that India would be a humane, inclusive country in which Muslims, as much as anybody else, would live as equal citizens in every single way. But we never fought for it. As India transformed increasingly, and not just in the last 5 years, right from the 80s, into a republic of hate and of fear. And now we see young people and women, working class women around the country coming out in support of, I can come out when I feel oppressed. Here I'm coming out because my brothers and sisters are being discriminated against. And that's a very, very special moment. And I think India will, it never happened in Germany right through the 1930s. There was never a time when non-Jews came out in support of the Jews. As matters got worse and worse. So let us really take heart from this moment. Whatever happens, it's going to be a very difficult 4 years ahead of us. But I think we have pulled back, and the whole country, in a sense, has started on a Karwane Mohabbat. I've been traveling, almost sleep deprived, going from protest to protest in far corners of the country. And everywhere I see the same upsurge. There are many people who feel quite cynical and say, what do they really understand about CAA, NRC, and NPR? You'd be amazed at how sophisticated is the understanding. I've heard teenage boys and girls talking about the CAA and the NRC in ways I don't think that Abhinav would be able to improve upon. They understand, but most of all, people understand two things: that our government is trying to divide us on the basis of religion, and that goes against the soul of India. And second is that the government is now, we voted the government in, and now they're saying, now you go and prove that you're a citizen. That much they understand. And they say, okay, if we didn't have faith that we were citizens, and first just resign, let the citizens be proved, and then let them choose who they want to vote. That comes through very clearly. But also this idea, when the Prime Minister says, I'll recognize you by your clothes, I saw that this one young man came, he's a Hindu boy from Jabalpur. He felt so badly. He came into Delhi, Jama Masjid, freezing cold, and he strips down to his boxer shorts, and then he puts up a sign saying, Pradhan Mantri, ab mere kapdon se mujhe pehchaniye. And it was getting colder and colder, and we kept saying, yaar, ab ho gaya na, you put on some clothes now. No, I have to, the Prime Minister must see this, etc. By about 9 o'clock at night, it was freezing, and we all took off some of our warm things. We dressed him up and sent him home. There were carol singers in Kerala who decided to respond to the Prime Minister by singing their carols with hijabs and skull caps. That's a beautiful moment. Whatever happens after this, India has pulled back. Very briefly, what is being contested is not new. The question is, who does this country belong to, and who belongs to this country? And this was a question raised all of 100 years ago when Gandhiji took leadership of our freedom struggle, and he said this is a country that belongs equally to all. And the Hindu Mahasabha and the RSS said, no, it will be a Hindu nation where Muslims and Christians, and not so clearly Dalits and Adivasis, will have to live as second-class citizens. In 1955, when citizenship laws were made, they said the only thing that you need to qualify to be an Indian citizen is to be born in this country. It was in 1987 under a Congress government, and most bad things that this government has done, the first steps have been taken by the Congress government, and we need to recognize that. It was in 1987 under Rajiv Gandhi that the laws were first changed, and the first qualification was put in that not enough for you to be born as an Indian citizen, one parent at least must be an Indian. But it was the Vajpayee government, who actually laid the foundation for everything that is happening today. In 2003, if they had got elected back in 2004, this would have probably happened much sooner. In 2003, they said, added qualifications. One parent needs to be Indian, but the other parent cannot be an illegal immigrant. He can even be a Martian, it's all right, but they cannot be an illegal citizen. And the illegal immigrant will be identified through the creation of the National Register of Indian Citizens, and in the rules they said for that there will be a national population register of residents from which the executive will decide who is the doubtful citizen at the level right of the Tehsildar, and then ordinary other citizens will have the right also to doubt. The NPR actually makes the NRC even more dangerous than what happened in Assam. In Assam, there were huge problems with that process, but it was not a communal project, and that's why many more Hindus could not prove their documents. Now you are asking the executive to choose doubtful citizens after the NPR, and who Mr. Adityanath is going to choose is not lost on either you or me. So And the CA by itself, even if it was not linked with the NRC and the NPR, would be an extremely dangerous project. I was just reading yesterday Swami Vivekananda. I wanted to just read his speech again. And it's quite extraordinary. He said, "I'm proud to belong to a country which has welcomed persecuted refugees from all over the world without distinction of religion and nation." He actually just used those words. And a government which claims to be inspired most of all by Swami Vivekananda has created a law which creates barriers of religion and nation. It's just extraordinary. I do not think this is even an implementable project. And I don't think the purpose of the project is to implement actually a national register of citizens and identify illegal immigrants. The real purpose of it is twofold. One is to place Indian Muslims in a permanent state of fear and insecurity about when they will be disenfranchised and how. And I've seen what happened in Assam. For 6 years, their lives have just come to a halt. People are just people have sold their properties. People have stopped thinking about livelihoods. People are committing suicide only to get those documents. Now, if that, and you're going to do it selectively with Indian Muslims, I think it is really, that is the larger purpose. And the second is to create such a deep divide in our society, which will actually pushes us to the brink of civil war. At this moment, Gandhiji had told us very clearly what we should do. If the law, if the state is unjust, it's not just our right but our duty to not cooperate with it through civil disobedience, and the civil disobedience must be by every citizen. But that civil disobedience, there are 2-3 things about civil disobedience when you look back. It's not enough for you to disobey the law. You have to disobey it publicly, and I say performatively, like Gandhiji did with that piece of salt. But the other part of it is that you have to also not only accept but demand punishment. You have to tell the state, "I've broken your law. Now either you punish me or you do away with the law. You can't not punish me." And therefore, what we need to do, all of us, is to say that we will not give documents. Hum kagaz nahi dikhayenge. But please understand, and that was my dilemma when I thought about this civil disobedience, and it's a very deep moral dilemma, that in the end, hum sabhi kagaz nahi dikhayenge. But I, as a non-Muslim, jab main kagaz nahi dikhaunga, will not face the detention center or disenfranchisement, because the law has been designed precisely to protect me. And we are actually, when we say hum kagaz nahi dikhayenge, we are actually pushing our Muslim brothers and sisters under the bus, because they are the only ones who are not going to be protected by the law. And therefore, I believe true civil disobedience requires us first to register in official documents as Muslim, then not give our documents, and then demand that if any of my Muslim brothers and sisters are put into detention centers, then I should also suffer the same. And I do, when I made this, I had no imagination that this would be the public kind of protest that would happen. I thought it would be a lone voice, but I put out saying that I have resolved to do this. And of course, I'm used to trolling from 2002, but what exploded was so much trolling and extremely sexualized trolling. And I think women are used to it a lot, men are not. But there was a complete preoccupation about my foreskin and my circumcision and my 4 wives and the hoors of paradise and so on and so forth. But I must say that at least 25 to 50 more messages I got of support saying that they would join such a movement of civil disobedience. That is my country. After 2002, when I decided to leave the civil service, I said I will never be able to sing the song Sare Jahan Se Acha again. But in these protests where I saw young people Hindu, Muslim, together, Muslims with the markers of identity, proudly waving the national flag, singing the national anthem becoming a protest anthem. The kind of love and solidarity that I saw. Somebody started singing Sare Jahan, and I found myself singing Sare Jahan Se Acha once again. The last thing that I wanted to say, where is this going to take us? I think the next 4 years are going to be terrifying. I think the repression is going to grow. I think just after the Delhi elections, maybe before, we're going to see the state at its worst, जिसको हिंदी में कहते हैं बौखला गए हैं. Gandhi ji used to unnerve the government, the Hindu right wing much more than anyone else, because this talk of love and solidarity, how do you deal with it? And I think that is what is, unnerving and unhinging. And therefore, they are even registering cases against primary school where there's an anti-CA protest. Cases of sedition are being filed. I mean, it sounds like a dystopia. I think we're going in through a very dark period of repression, but where is all of this going to be resolved? The idea of who this country belongs to and who belongs to this country will be resolved not by parliament, because our political parties show no moral caliber to fight that battle or appetite. It's not going to be resolved by the Supreme Court. I have very little faith left in them. It's going to be resolved by we, the people of India, on the streets in the way that we have set out to fight this battle. But most of all, please remember, it's not even going to be resolved on the streets. It's going to be resolved in our hearts, whether we have allowed hate to colonize our hearts, or whether love and solidarity and fraternity is what we are going to place in our hearts. I think young people, I've really talked to a lot of them on the streets, they're rebelling against their own parents, as Siddharth was saying. First of all, when they come out onto the streets, if our young people and the women who are leading our battles demonstrate that in our hearts we've not allowed hate to get colonized, only then will we win this battle. Thank you.